So this morning we are in Genesis chapter 30. This is the story of the sons of Jacob. He had a row of them. Maybe somebody can keep track as we go down through here to see how many sons Jacob had and how they came up with 12 land-bearing tribes and one that doesn't have a tribe. Alright, so Genesis chapter 30 verse 1 says, Now when Rachel saw that she had bore Jacob no children. Remember in the last chapter, Leah had conceived like 3 or 4 times. 4 times she had 4, and Rachel didn't have any children. And one of the reasons that Rachel didn't have any children is because it says that God saw that Leah was not loved. Okay? In verse 31 of the last chapter, Now the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, and he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. So from what you would think, they were both barren at one point. The only reason that one of them had a child is because God opened her womb. Okay? So then, in the beginning of the next chapter, in chapter 30 here, it says, Now Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children. She became jealous of her sister. And she said to Jacob, Give me children, or else I die. Okay, so I would definitely say that Rachel, although she was beautiful, and all that, she was not a believer at all. And we will see later on things that Rachel did. Does, not in this chapter, but when Jacob leaves Laban, where she has stolen his God or whatever. She was not a believer in God. Anyway, then it says, Then Jacob's anger burned against Rachel, and he said, Am I in the place of God who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb? It wasn't Jacob saying, I haven't withheld my husbandly duty. I've done everything I'm supposed to do. And he didn't say, well, I'm sorry, you just can't have children. No, he said it was God who kept her from having children. That's what we need to understand. We believe so many people that, well, there's just something wrong with me, I can't have. And there is, okay? There is. There are women who can't have children because there's something wrong with them. But they have to understand something. God is in control of that. We don't want to admit that. Well, why would God not let me have children? Why did that woman over there have children and I can't? I don't know. But God is sovereign. He decides. And then so what we do is we go and we spend thousands and thousands, and people spend thousands of dollars trying to go over God's head instead of praying about it and letting God be in control. They try to make things happen that is not their right to do. They mess with nature. They mess with what God has created, what God has done. And instead of trusting, that's not faith, guys. That's not trusting. Verse 3 says, She said, Here is my maid Bilhah. Go into her, that she may bear on my knees. Now, I read that, and I was like, what? Did you hear that? Let me read that again. Here is my maid Bilhah. Go into her, that she may bear on my knees. In ancient times, they literally had their babies sitting down. They used to have something they called the birthing chair. Did you know that? They had what they called a birthing chair. They sat down on it, and it was much like our toilets of today. Matter of fact, that's where the idea of the toilets came from. But anyway, so what they would do, the woman, the maid or whatever, would instead of sitting on a birthing chair, she would sit on the knees of Rachel, and then that would be considered her child because she was Rachel's maid. And so it says that through her I too may have children. So she gave him her maid Bilhah as a wife, and so once again she gave her as a wife. Okay, doesn't say she was his wife, but as a wife. Okay, and Jacob went into her. Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. Then Rachel said, God has vindicated me, and has indeed heard my voice, and has given me a son. Now, it says, therefore she named him Dan. Once again, we see something here where Jacob did what his wife asked, and he went into her maid, and he obviously got her pregnant, and now was that a sin?
At the time, no.
At that time it wasn't a sin. Why was it not a sin?
There was no law saying it was. And sin is transgression of the law.
Right. Sin is transgression of the law. That's in Timothy, right? Sin is transgression of the law. And at that time, there was no law that said that they could do that, okay? But once again, we see, remember when Abraham and Sarah, with Hagar, tried to step in and help God do what he needed to do. Jacob said the right thing to Rachel. He said, he says, it was God who had withheld from you the fruit of the womb. It wasn't Jacob. Jacob was doing his husbandly duty. Okay, he was doing what he was supposed to do, but it was God who withheld from her. Same way with Sarah. God withheld from Sarah for a reason. He had a purpose and a reason for what he was doing. And he works out all things after the counsel of his will. Okay? And so he goes on here and he says, so Rachel's maid Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. So Rachel said, with mighty wrestling I have wrestled with my sister, and I have indeed prevailed. And she named him Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had stopped bearing, she took her maid Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a son. Then Leah said, how fortunate. So she named him Gad. Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a second son. Then Leah said, happy am I, for women will call me happy. So she named him Asher. Now how many have we got so far? Four, and she had 4 from Leah to start with, right? So now we have 4 from each one of the maids. Okay? So that makes 4 and 4 makes 8 so far. Okay? Now in the days of wheat harvest, Reuben went and found mandrakes. Who was Reuben?
Their first son.
Jacob's first son with Leah. Now in the days of wheat harvest, Reuben went and found mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, please give me some of your son's mandrakes. But she said to her, is it a small matter for you to take my husband? And would you take my son's mandrakes also? Leah, there was obviously a contention between these two women, wasn't there? Obviously God, and we know that God meant it to be one man and one woman for life. How do we know that?
That's the way it was in the beginning.
That's the way God made it. He didn't make Adam with a dozen wives or with 3 or 4. He made him one wife. And also Jesus said, what did Jesus say? Jesus said that from the beginning God meant it to be, when they were asking him about divorce, that God meant it to be one husband and one wife for life, okay? But there was no law saying that. Paul also says that where there is no law, there is no violation of the law, right? So it says, and so she is obviously a little upset that Rachel took her husband from her. That her husband loved Rachel more than he loved her.
Didn't she know that he wanted to marry Rachel in the first place?
I don't know about that. I've often wondered, did Jacob, surely they had to have known. But I don't know. so it says, so Rachel said, therefore he may lie with you tonight in return for your son's mandrakes. So I have to wonder if Rachel kind of ruled who Jacob...
Well, maybe she slept in the same bed as him every night or something.
Maybe. I don't know.
No, I don't think Jacob would make both of their sisters stay in the same bed.
No, what I'm saying is maybe Rachel slept with Jacob. And Leah had her own room or something.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, guys. I really don't know. I will say this. I would suggest that maybe they didn't do like married couples of the day, sleep in the same bed. That's something that kind of came around in the last so many years. I mean, I can still remember as a boy, people having separate beds, maybe sleeping in the same bedroom but separate beds, like twin beds. Or even having separate rooms, husband and wives.
I feel like those people that live, they go to Third Road Church, the old guy that sings, Kim, and his wife, they don't sleep in the same room.
Well, I mean,
they don't drive the same vehicle.
Roger and Yvette don't either, because they work different hours.
One works nights, one works days.
One work. And so, you know, that way you don't wake each other up or, you know, disturb each other in the nighttime. If you have a wife that likes to kick you in the middle of the night, that, you know, you don't have to worry about that. She can kick all she wants. She can't reach you. She's in a different bed or even in a different room. So, you know, I mean, I don't know. But maybe they each had their own beds. And Jacob decided which bed he's going to go. Maybe Rachel here. I mean, here Rachel says. So Rachel said, therefore, he may lie with you tonight in return for your son's mandrakes. So I don't know. When Jacob came in from the field,
That's mandrakes.
mandrakes. MacArthur has down here mandrakes. Jacob had 8 sons by then from 3 women, and about 6 years had elapsed since his marriages. The oldest son, Reuben, was about 5. Playing in the field during the wheat harvest, he found this small orange-colored fruit and brought them to his mother Leah. These were superstitiously viewed in the ancient world as love apples and Aphrodite or fertility-inducing narcotic. It wasn't real. It was something they believed. I mean, once again, you have to remember, Rachel was not a believer. We know this by the things she says and the things she does, okay? She doesn't believe that God... She thought it was Jacob's fault that she wasn't having a baby. But it was God. It was God who was keeping her from having a baby. He had a reason for it. And it says, when Jacob came in from the field in the evening, then Leah went out to meet him and said, you must come in to me, for I have surely hired you with my son's mandrakes. So he lay with her that night. I mean, this is her husband. He was her first wife. And she goes out and meets him and says, you have to lay with me because I've hired you. That's kind of strange. It says, so he lay with her that night. God gave heed to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a 5th son. So by this time, there was 9 kids, 9 children, because God gave her another son through this. Then Leah said, God has given me my wages because I gave my mate to my husband. So she named him Issachar. Leah conceived again and bore a sixth son to Jacob. Then Leah said, God has endowed me with a good gift. Now my husband will dwell with me because I have borne him 6 sons. So she named him Zebulun. So Leah herself has had 6 sons, and each of the maids have had 2. So here we have 10 children, right? And at this point, Rachel has not had any children. Okay. Then God remembered Rachel and gave heed to her and opened her womb. Now, I want you to notice throughout that this is so important. This is so foundational. Preachers don't preach on this anymore. They don't point it out. They just ignore it. They leave it alone because of the birth control issue that's out there. They don't want to. Several reasons. They want to control what God is supposed to control. If we back up here and says in verse 17, it says, God gave heed to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a 5th son. Okay? And then if you go down here, it says, then God remembered Rachel, and God gave heed to her and opened her womb. Each time when these, it's so plain in the Bible that babies don't come from doctors. They don't come, they come from God. The reason a woman has a child is because God opens or closes a woman's womb. And if God doesn't give you a child to take your money and pour it into money after money after money to you, and then somebody will say, I had a baby. You don't think I had a baby because you don't think that's from God? I'm not saying that. I'm saying that that you wasted all that money, and if God wanted you to have a baby, the only reason you had a baby was because God caused you to have a baby, not because of all the medical stuff that you did. Okay? So it says, so she conceived and bore a son and said, God has taken away my reproach. She named him Joseph, saying, may the Lord give me another son. So we know who Joseph is, right? Yeah. Joseph is, we will hear a lot about Joseph here in a few chapters. You guys want to do the other half, or you want to do the other half tomorrow? Huh? Tomorrow, Sunday. Yeah, you want to do it on another day. Because we won't be here. Well, we'll be here Monday morning. Wyatt and Beth won't be here. They're going to run off. Tomorrow's our anniversary. 1 year. Man, the honeymoon is almost over, guys. I'm sorry.
It's not.
It's not over.
Life don't end when kids are coming.
Okay.
That's right.
Alright. I'm glad you figured that out.
You just don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, I know what I'm talking about. I just wanted to see what you would say. Trust me, I know. Alright, we've been on you have to understand, Mom and I have almost had a 21-year honeymoon now. Ain't that right, honey? She just giggles. Alright, so we'll do this, we'll finish this. We'll start at verse 25 and go on Monday morning. We don't usually do Bible study on Sunday morning because we have church and then we have a sermon and we have a lot going on Sunday mornings. So we don't end up doing a Bible study. I know we're heathens, but alright. So why don't we anybody have any thoughts? What do you think? Why do you think women have babies?
God opens and closes the wombs.
Exactly. It's God who does it, isn't it?
Yep.
I know people don't want to believe that. Did God ever say anywhere in the Bible that you know of? Or you can even, if you don't know the whole Bible, if you Even just what is there anywhere, any point yet that God said, okay, quit being fruitful and quit multiplying? Nowhere so far has it. We haven't found anything like that. Guys, I'll be honest with you, in all the Bible studying that I do and I have done, I've never found that. Nowhere ever. Throughout the Bible, the only command God gave us in regards to children was to be fruitful and multiply. He never said, and people say, well, God doesn't say we can't take birth control pills. He doesn't say that, God gave doctors the knowledge to figure it out. Well, yes, that is true. And God also gave people the knowledge to know how to cut someone's head off. The knowledge to make knives to do it with.
Make guns.
Guns and bullets. God gave us a lot of knowledge. That doesn't mean that we should do something just because it doesn't address it in the Bible. Okay? Alright.
You know what my thoughts on that are?
What is that?
I'm just glad I don't have to share my husband.
Yeah? I mean, I'll be honest with you. I've had people say, they act like it'd be really great to have 2 or 3 wives. I want you to think about what Jacob had to go through. I mean, here he had 2 wives, and each one of them then give him their maid. And look at the trouble it caused when Sarah gave her maid to Abraham. I mean, for me, in my opinion, I mean, I've put up with this same woman for 20 years. I don't think I could have handled 4 of them.
No.
Imagine having 2 and then getting jealous over each other. Which one of you?
I think it's a great thing. I said I had to put up with my wife, guys. I really don't feel that way. We've had a really good marriage. But that being said, I can't help but wonder what it would. I mean, I cannot imagine. I cannot say that I long to have had more than 1 wife.
You can't get a jealous like that. You have more than one.
No, but think about it. What Beth said, she's right. What if you had? I mean, there's got to be jealousy. That's human nature. If you had 2 wives, we already, when we love our wives the way Christ loved the church, how can you love, if we truly love our wives the way Christ loved the church, we are kind of taking from God to love her the way we should. Our affections are split, are separated, we have to divide them. Paul says that, right? If you add another wife to the mix, and then you have to try, and they're both, and they're jealous. No, you have to come and be with me tonight. No, you have to be with me tonight. No, I need you to do this. Well, no, I need you to do this.
To me, I'm curious what he was thinking when they gave him their maid, whatever they call them.
Their maids.
Maidens, their
Servants.
Yeah. I'm like, to me, I'm just wondering what was going through his mind at that point, and why he would do it.
I'll be honest with you, I don't know for sure, Beth, but I would say he was like every other man. He saw the chance to be with another woman.
But back then it was a custom thing. I mean,
it wasn't sin.
It wasn't a bad thing.
It wasn't obviously it wasn't sin because it wasn't against the law. But guys, you have to understand, he was still a man. He still dealt with sexual desires. Okay, it's another woman. It's whatever. And I wonder then. We don't have any record of these 2 maids causing problems like that was between Hagar and Sarah. Okay, but at the same time there was enough problems just between the sisters. The fact that there were 2 sisters vying for the affections of one man. Does that make sense? I mean, Rachel makes it plain. And Leah may both make it plain that they have to struggle with each other. I have wrestled with my sister, she says. They struggle with each other to try and win his affections, to try and be the most wanted or the most needed, the most longed for. And God never meant for it to be that way. While it wasn't sin then, I can't say that I would desire for that. First of all, I wouldn't want my wife to have to feel like I cared more for the other one. I wouldn't want to myself to be tempted to try to decide to compare the two and decide, do I like this one better or do I like that one better? Our human nature would do that. But I'm thankful that God set it up the way it is, and He knew best, and He knows best. He knew best then, and He still knows best. And I say what we need to do is learn to be content with what God has given us. All right. Any more thoughts?
Yeah.
All right. Let's close in prayer and get our day started. Father God, thank you for this day, Lord. I thank you for being with us through the night. I pray, Father, that you be with us today. Help us to get the things done we need to do. Lord, I just ask that you help us that the things we say and do would bring glory to you. Lord, I ask that you be with us during the church service tomorrow. Lord, that you would speak, that you would help us to learn. Lord, just ask you to, we have the trip coming up. We're leaving on Monday to go to Missouri. I ask you to just keep us safe on the trip. Just that you give us travel mercies. Lord, I know that you're calling us to preach, and I ask that you would be there. You would prepare the hearts of those that will be listening in Missouri. That you would, Lord, that your Holy Spirit would work, and that you would speak through me. Lord, just ask that, Lord, that you would help us that whatever we say and do, we would do it to bring glory to you, not ourselves. And that we would do it in faith, that you would be in control. That you would be sovereignly in control, and that you would work out all things after the counsel of your will. Lord, just go with us today. Help us to get the things done we need to do. Just forgive us what we've done. In Jesus' name.